Yeah, I'm waiting to see myself here. Yay! Thank you. Live studio audience. So I'm here with Malte Gubbel, CTO of Vercel.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And I'm Simon Svale, CTO of Sanity. And kind of the motivation for this event is partly, so you've seen the loop with the video, you saw it here as well. So it's about this visual editing feature. And it kind of started with a coffee we had back in October.
I actually remember the beers after the conference, but
I only remember that.
It was like, yeah, it was definitely a very spontaneous thing, kind of this thing going in my mind that we needed to do something in this space, but I needed a content partner to actually execute on it.
Yeah, so I didn't know, like you were just sprang that. Did you have like I thought like I invited you for a coffee, but like, you had like a plan.
Yeah, this was it was very serendipitous. Like we, I had been going for this for a while, and actually it was also a bit cheating. This was actually my plan for a hackathon at Vercel, and so I needed to usually obviously you're supposed to kind of make your project up the day off, but I was like months before kind of
have this guy do it,
recruiting a partner to actually help us.
Yeah, so the thing you said was like, is there a way where so the headless space or the composable space is of course amazing because it means you can compose your solution from the best technologies from each kind of area, but there's some downsides to that.
Right. Yeah. So the way I usually think about things is I both love and hate trade-offs, and what I really love is if you see a trade-off and you can just get rid of it. So I've been in this like web space for a very long time, but interestingly, I was at Google doing other stuff. Let's put it that way.
Secret?
No, it's not very secret.
It's good to know. Yeah.
But like from 2012-ish to 2022, so like basically a year ago, right? And so I didn't really have actually that much insight into what was going on in the world. But before that, in the 0 years, basically, I was doing consulting in the web space. But that was like all on these monolithic CMSs. So I was like used to a certain feature set, and then I come in the new world, and suddenly it's very clearly better because I, remember suffering. I won't name any names because some of them are still around, but I remember suffering, and clearly now, there's this develop a forward way, but also some of the features that I know people appreciated were gone, and so I was basically thinking about it. Can we square that circle and bring it back while obviously retaining the features that the developers love and that make us more productive and allow us to combine best of breed, blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff is just clearly very good, and it's successful because the trade-off was the right one. But it would be better if we could get everyone in the same boat and be inclusive with all the rules.
And I think that kind of goes to what we are trying as platforms and what we are trying to partner with our users and customers about is investing in that kind of team productivity. Like how can we make teams more productive? Of course, these trade-offs are there for a good reason, or it is valuable to have these tools, but it has been, especially for big companies, complex teams, the connection between, like, if you do structured content the right way, you do it in a very principled way. And that means your content is often used several places in your experience, maybe managed by different teams. And going from then the experience and figuring out where in my CMS do I need to go to fix this thing. It's a simple, dumb thing in a sense. But that's one of the things that you call it putting the head back on the headless, like figuring out those things and fixing them. Before we go any further on this, let's see a demo. Carolina Gonzalez, a solution engineer at Sanity, and Caroline Kilgore, an account executive at Sanity, they put together this demo and showing how we are using this feature with Vercel preview bar and the kind of content source mapping inside Sanity.
Hi, everyone. Excited to talk today. My name is Caroline Kilgore. I'm one of the enterprise account executives here at Sanity, and I am joined by Carolina Gonzalez, one of our enterprise solutions engineers.
Hi, everybody.
We're super excited to talk about visual editing today. Carolina and I work really closely with our enterprise customers who are especially focused on content creation and content collaboration. And we think that visual editing is going to be a game changer for their teams. I think, first and foremost, like instant visual context for structured content is going to be really amazing. We also think that this is likely going to streamline onboarding for a lot of these customers. So Carolina and I are excited to share a first look at some of this today.
Yeah, let me share my screen really quickly and show you kind of the end-to-end process of using this tool. Hopefully this will highlight how it will help content creators especially, and I'll maybe speak a little bit to some of the technical underlying pieces as well. So it all begins here. I'm in a Vercel preview deployment. Those with keen eyes will see that I've got my little toolbar down there, and even my URL is reflecting my preview deployment. There are a lot of amazing tools for collaboration here already. Something that our team uses a lot are comments on being able to just instantly kind of speak to something that we want to change before it goes out to production. As you can see, I have an inbox full of things I need to change, which is pretty typical for anybody in an enterprise. So if I jump over to a note I've left for myself on one of our landing pages and scroll down, you can see that I made a note to change an image to a screenshot. This is a request that I received from our demand generation team. I can do that now. I could go over to our studio. I could go back and see that I'm looking for something about remarkable editing experiences. Our search is pretty good, so I should hopefully just find what I need to find jumping over here and loading up the page. And we're using structured content to kind of build our page using different modules, which is really great for content creators. They have a lot of flexibility in the kinds of things they're presenting. But in terms of going into somebody else's work and finding what they did, it's maybe not as fun. So, and it maybe only takes me a few seconds to do that finding and navigating, but those add up over days, over large projects, over large teams. So this will totally streamline things if I just click the set button. So this is visual editing in action. You'll notice that all of the content on this page is surrounded by these contextual blocks here that have this open Insanity Studio flag up top. And clicking through to this image and pressing this here will actually go ahead and navigate me directly to that same document, even to that modal that's controlling that block on that page. And I even have focus on the image that I need to change here. So if I go ahead and make that change right here, I don't need to worry about it. I can just, let's say, switch to Studio, as I said. That looks right, and can give that a publish, and I'd be ready to go.
You know what this makes me think of? Sometimes you're going through like a QA or a review process of a page and you notice a typo, and maybe that typo is part of someone else's content. To your point, a lot of times the beauty with structured content is the content on one page is coming from different teams. Imagine you could just click on it, go update, fix the typo, and then not only is the full page up to date, but you can also make sure that anywhere else that team is reusing that content, that typo isn't there anymore. I mean, how amazing would that be?
I think, speaking to different teams is exactly where I was going. I think you saw me coming, because even if you saw my inbox here, if I go ahead and show them all again, we'll see that I have something from demand gen, but I also have something from community, principal marketing manager for developers. And he's on an entirely different team. He's working in an entirely different context. I don't necessarily always know. We're in different parts of the organization, so I don't necessarily always know how they've structured their particular content. So if I go ahead and let's navigate to where he is, you'll see that I have that comment from him on changing the description for our vision plugin. And this is something that's pretty typical and becoming more and more common with our large enterprises, is that not everything is powered by one Sanity Studio. Not everything is powered by one Sanity data set. Sometimes not everything is powered by one Sanity project. And teams may not know about those projects, but they might share content, to your point, and be able to use them throughout a site. So if I were to go back to our admin site here, I wouldn't find anything about plugins, because that's actually living in an entirely different studio. It doesn't really matter with visual editing. I can go ahead and press that edit button again, get that same UI I needed, and actually copy what he wants me to change before I head over there. There we go. and then go ahead and give that a click to my Sanity Studio. And I'm now in our community studio where lots of people put in lots of different kinds of plugins and templates and showcases. But again, I have focus right here on the description I need to change. I don't necessarily have to know anything about the studio before heading here, but I can do exactly what I need to do without having to bug him or ask him what he means.
This makes me think about onboarding, and like in a really big organization that, you know, where you have a super wide content universe, it can be sometimes tricky to start to learn everything. But imagine if you could just kind of contextually go in and start to click on things and figure out where that lives. To your point, it might be in a different studio, in a different workspace. You could learn the content model so much faster this way.
Yeah, and I think context is huge there. I think that's probably something that we're shipping. We have the UI, it's there in our preview deployment, but we're actually also backing it up with new releases in our client and in our API. So I'm really excited to see what people build with it. I think preview is kind of really delightful for everybody who needs to be working with content, but I think you could build a lot more by shipping context with the content to any kind of system. So I'm super excited to see what people build with it.
Yeah, this is awesome. Sounds like it's only just the beginning. Thanks so much for sharing with us.
Thank
you. Yeah. So Dylan Javeri from Mux, welcome to the stage. So we're gonna use this a little bit like this.
Okay.
So what's your role at Mux?
I'm director of open source and community. So we do quite a bit of open source work. Our video player is one of our products, and that's open source. And then community is kind of the DevRel side that covers, events, marketing website, content, and stuff like that.
And when we talked about this, so we invited you here because you are a customer of both Vercel and you're a customer of Sanity, and we appreciate that, and we're so happy to partner with you. Yeah. But what I would love to talk about today is how you think about investing in your team productivity, in your developer and your content kind of professional experience and over time. You had a great story about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, first of all, the thing we love about being on Vercel and Sanity, these are two kind of platforms we picked several years ago, really. And the great thing is that when you're picking a platform to kind of build your marketing site on, or your content, blog, whatever it may be, and where you're deploying those projects, you want to be on a platform that's kind of always, you feel like, is innovating and going in the right direction. So I'm always super excited when there's a new Vercel release, see what those, see what the new stuff we have to play with, or there's a new Sanity release. And it's been fun to have our organization kind of like grow with those platforms and grow with those products. And I think what we've gotten out of it is just a productivity boost in terms of content and getting stuff out on the marketing site, getting content published on the blog. The Vercel deploy previews is kind of something you can't live without. So easy to just get that going. And then Sanity, we've kind of grown with Sanity, and we started out with just migrating our blog content to Sanity and having that. And once we got that into Sanity and we had our blog on Vercel and our mux.com on Vercel, it was really, really nice, and it was very different than the world we were in before. We were able to make a draft, see the preview of that draft kind of instantly on the deploy preview site. Have the marketing team not have to be blocked by developers. So I feel most organizations are kind of strapped for developer resources, and the last thing anyone on the team wants to do is kind of like go bug someone or poke them, say, hey, where can I preview my blog? Or I'm not seeing the updates, or right, oh, wait for the cache to clear. I've already waited. The cache hasn't cleared yet. So it's like all those problems just being gone has been great. And you can update content, preview it, publish it, and have that all just work seamlessly and smoothly. And one other project we did recently that was really great was we did a bunch of SEO work on the blog posts, content pages, different places on our site. We kind of did a whole analysis, and we found, all right, what are the pages terms we want to rank for that were maybe on the second or third page, but if we just improve those pages a bit, we'd get to the first page. And we kind of did a whole analysis, found all the pages we wanted to update. And as we're going through this site and finding those pages, kind of tracing back, okay, where's that content coming from? We had some legacy pages where the metadata and descriptions kind of like hard coded into those pages, and you have to get a developer to go update those. But then we had a bunch of other ones that where those SEO meta tags it was already in Sanity. So it's like the title and the description and the images we're using. So that made it really easy. Those ones were really easy to just go in and change. And then during that process, we migrated some of the other content that was still hard coded, kind of migrated that into Sanity. So as we kind of revisit projects like that, it's very nice to not have to get developers time to kind of go update this stuff when you can just update it straight from the CMS.
I just wanted to break in there because I think that's something that sometimes frustrates us, and I don't know about you, but I feel like we are developer platforms, and sometimes people get that wrong because they think that means it's developer centric. But what you're saying, but I kind of really is why we created Sanity the way we shape it, and I think this is why we think, like when we meet for coffee, we think about how to unlock team productivity when they edit stuff, because it's all about unlocking those teams to not need developers, but you invest a little bit of the development time to kind of maximize the output of the team. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, totally. It's using the developer's time kind of upfront to build a system, and then you kind of we kind of think of it as that we have a team of developers that are building a platform for the rest of the company to kind of put content, put pages out, publish content to the site, to our websites, and those developers just kind of building the systems to enable these other teams, and that's kind of how we think about it.
Exactly. So development platform doesn't mean developer centric. The organization is developer centric. I think it's similar with the preview builds.
Yeah, I think when I joined Vercel, I had like couple core theses, like why there is potential, and one of them definitely was just to be more inclusive to like a broader audience. And so the first feature kind of coming out of that insight was the commenting feature in general, and that has been incredibly successful. But the vision originally was basically like basically let's turn every web page into a Google Doc, except one where the developer writes the CSS and controls all the design. but the content, right, like should be editable, should be like all these features that you have in a Google Doc collaborative where you can like suggest content, like in the end we should have all of that stuff, right? Like it's a great to-do list. Just maybe combined with the design of Figma to like make it actually nice. But that's kind of how that's the journey we're on.
Exactly. There's something we often talk about, like content velocity. And I think that's kind of where your story kind of really clicked for me, because it's like moving from, for example, like a static build that takes 20 minutes to see your change, and then to Vercel having this instant kind of incremental builds. And then the Sanity Studio being, because you also kind of have improved the way you build landing pages over time, right?
Yeah. I'm going to have a plug here for Mux.com. We launched a new kind of whole rebrand of the site on Mux.com, and through that process, which we also migrated to the app directory, Next 13, nice, and all that stuff. And through that process, yeah, we built this kind of new system for building, like having page builders, like a page builder kind of concept in the CMS. So you can kind of create a landing page and then pull in different sections and kind of individual sections and components that you can kind of drag and drop around in the studio to just spin up new marketing pages. But again, it's like the people doing the content are just worried about the content, and it was all built with the React components and designed with our design system and everything like that. So yeah.
So where do we kind of so now we have this amazing feature. It's people should know this is an enterprise feature. You've kicked the tires a little bit. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I did actually just last week. Again, what I like the Vercel is it's just sort of very low friction, very low risk to just try something, like create a branch, put in a pull request. You're going to see the deploy preview, and you can just send the link around and try it out. So had to upgrade a couple packages, like the Sandy image package, and got it working on the deploy preview, so you can try out the edit feature. Yeah, and it was very cool. It was definitely a little bit mind blowing just to see it work.
I think it's something we should actually highlight, like the core idea. Like obviously you can Google Visual Builder for my website, and you find a few that are specifically designed for headless websites. Like this is not competition with that, because all of those, the way they would onboard you is they basically tell you by starting to rewrite your website, right? And you went through this process. That's not part of the process, right? You just basically tell the Sanity API, I want to be in this visual editing mode, and then your website is in editing mode. and there's no step 2. So that's really the key innovation, I think.
Yeah, because you would think that you might have to instrument your site somehow,
right?
But you didn't. There were some kind of interesting effects, but it was easily fixed.
Yeah. I thought for sure we were gonna have to do something with the components, or I was like, somehow the Sanity content has to get like wired in through the HTML, but you came up with this very clever way to to handle all that.
Right. I think especially that maybe you don't have to rewrite your site, but you have to in the traditional way, you have to instrument basically every DOM element, and that's code duplication. So I think it's very, very easy to get it wrong, right? So like having the method that we develop, where it's like by definition consistent, like saves time and also like actually makes things more correct in the end.
So I think that's kind of where I really love that conversation we had initially, because it's about making it seamless and easy and fast for the editors and the content kind of professionals, and also for the whole development experience to just take away a lot of the chores but then maybe for you right now, your marketing team is not huge, and they know probably the content kind of model really well, right? So not necessarily something.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, again, why being on these platforms is nice, because as we see ourselves being able to kind of grow with Sanity, grow with Vercel, and as our team grows, as we have more people in the editor, we have more people editing content, then it has these features we can leverage as we're a growing organization too.
Because that's kind of where I guess this really comes into play, where we have companies coming in like that are deployed several studios, like Carolina talks about, that have different teams that basically don't know about. Like, for example, they were showing the community studio. When I look at some content in our site, I don't actually know I don't even know which studio to go to, which team owns it. So to me, it's amazing. I can now, like, without pestering anyone or without pestering people, so I can just click on it, and it will show me, oh, that's the team. So it actually shows me the organization structure. And I think for huge companies like AT&T or Burger King, like, this is going to be incredibly powerful as a way to basically glue the organization back together, in a sense of recomposing it in a sense. But I would love to do. Are we free to talk about like what you want to do in the future? Can we dream a little bit?
How much do you want to dream? I actually have there's actually something that's very much boring and very important that we haven't shipped on Vercel, but that we're going to ship like over the next few months, which is that right now the toolbar that it turns you into edit mode actually is only available on preview builds. But like if you publish content, you don't actually need a preview branch, right? Because that's a operation that's kind of independent of the deployment, which is like kind of part of the magic that you don't have to redeploy, right? And so we're working hard on getting the toolbar for obviously only authenticated users also be available on your production site. And we've been having this on Vercel.com for ourselves for about 6 months now, and it actually gets substantially more usage that way, because that's where people really are, right? And so serendipitous, you find a typo on your production side, you go fix it right away. That's been very, very powerful. And so that's definitely something we're going to do, which seems like a minor thing, but obviously you have to have this entire system that kind of differentiates between your normal users who should not see this, right? And everyone else.
You don't want users suggesting edits?
I mean, we have
it's like a wiki. It turns out everything is a wiki.
I mean, you're joking, but like we for the beta and XJS side for 6 months, we had comments on. I think we got 11,000 comments. We built an entire kind of moderation feature, which you wouldn't need like for your internal company thing, and we didn't have to like use it. Like it was absolutely incredible. Like we got so much very high value feedback that in context, right? Where again, like imagine you had so many screenshots, so many GitHub issues in our case, right? Like compared to like the super lightweight edits that you can like just act on right away. So
in the future, there's comments on the website, and it goes to an LLM that will just implement those changes.
There you go. And I don't want to recommend that people actually put this widget on their site, but like you can, if that's if you're an open source project, for example, I think it's actually kind of a good idea.
Stuff that would be useful. So what do you use?
I do. So I want the exact opposite of the content source map. I want to from the studio be able to see if I'm on a specific piece of content, see where this content is. On what pages is this piece of content showing up on? Like because I've had that problem where I'm editing something and I know it's on this page, but it might be on some other pages that I don't know about, and I want to go check those pages in the preview before I publish. So that's what I like.
Like a content destination map.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So this is actually a really interesting idea. I think it's possible to build.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need the exact wrong thing.
Oh, the exact opposite of what you just really.
No, but it's definitely. It sounds very.
So the super naive one afternoon project would just to build a crawler for your site while it's in visual editing mode and extract the metadata and then basically use it as an inversion map.
Exactly, because I think that's something that's interesting to also make sure. So we have implemented this as an open standard on our side as the content source maps. It's something that can be used for all kinds of stuff. That's a developer feature where you basically can take any query that you make to the content lake and it gets mapped back to where it came from originally. And that can be used for all kinds of mapping back, perform like analytics data or comments, mapping in them back. And then you on your side have implemented an open, so any framework can kind of support that from our side, and then from your side, any CMS of course can support that feature.
We were actually thinking, and maybe it's a very bad idea, but we just shipped a database for Vercel, and we were
People say terrible.
We were considering to tag the very result with a source map pointing back to the select statement that generated that precise text.
Exactly.
Which before, so obviously that's not for content, but let's say you have a user generated content site and you have something in a database that I think that would be really, really
yeah. I mean, our thinking, like the content lake is of course like we define data as content, right? So for example, if you're using Shopify with Sanity or like your inventory, for example, is part of the content. You think of that as content. And I think that content source mapping. But my point was that you're thinking about like scraping the site back. Yeah. So these technologies that we kind of made to support this feature, they are like a beginning of a new, like think about the source map that we use for JavaScript. It supports all kinds of features, debugging features, linting, coverage management, all that kind of thing.
Right. I guess a good example actually is like, for example, using JavaScript source maps for not necessarily for debugging, but like that are accessed by like your client side error management software, right? Which that absolutely was not like literally the guy who invented them, John Lance, was sitting next to me for a long time, and he was not thinking about like that use case, right?
Exactly.
That's how standards kind of.
So like content source maps for databases or using them for weird the opposite purpose. That's amazing. Yeah, my dream would be like, so I love that. I think we should make that feature. I think it would be very, very important for a lot of people. I also want to be able to, so some people work through the CMS, like they go to the CMS and they are in the studio, they are working with the content, that's their day to day. Other people, maybe other places in the organization, they are in the experience, they are looking at the documentation. Let's say you're a developer and you see, I love the idea of having the preview bar available in production, so you can just see it, comment it, but I would love for those comments to kind of be tagged to that source map and then appear inside the studio as well as kind of a work order in a sense, or like so I can go and see all of that in comments.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah. It'd be great to get video in the mix if you could screen record, upload videos with the comments.
Yeah, how does that? Yeah, it's a good idea. Like, let's explore that. How does this tie into video as content? Is there any? Do you need content source map in your product?
Well, yeah. In our Sanity Studio, we have like a video schema that attaches. You can give the video like a title, upload the actual video itself. It gets processed by Mux, handled like that. So if you're putting those videos across your site, again, I'd like to see. If we have one video in the CMS, we're showing it in multiple places. I'd like to see where that shows up. And then with the content source map, see if I'm on a page and I need to change this video or we just did a whole brand refresh, right? So we have videos that we had to go update our old videos that had the old logo, and we had to update, track down all those videos and update them. So yeah, I think, videos a big part of content on all these kind of marketing sites. It's used heavily as a marketing asset. It's used in, UGC user created videos that are maybe coming from a database, and kind of just another form of content, whether it's text, image, video.
I think that's one thing that we talked about last time, where, like, in a sense, having, like, let's call it like forwarding the content source map. So let's say for example, a lot of our customers are synchronizing with Shopify. So lots of the content is actually not always owned by the studio. It's actually like syndicated in and composed with other content. And I'm thinking, like, with Mux or videos, it's a similar deal. Like, there is some content that's specific to those videos that kind of synced in or kind of linked in the studio. So in the final experience, it would be amazing if we could support having kind of the source maps point back to the original source, and the authoritative source of the content, if it's like in the Postgres database or if it's in Mux or Shopify. In a sense, Bill, it goes with your theme of putting the head back, in a sense, like getting the benefits of the monolith. It's all in one place, but it doesn't have to be in one place. It just feels like it.
Right. No, I think this is actually very powerful, right? Like, it could be both like multiple sources, and then those sources kind of going deep into a tree, and you can just visualize that entire kind of transitive graph of content coming into the front end.
I mean, even back in the day, we used just databases. Like, you had when database-driven applications was a thing, source map would have been great there as well. Like, just SQL can really mess things up, and you have no idea where things actually came from. And the way it's put together now, it's like, actually you can even see, if you do like a computed field, you combine a number of strings, or we can still map that this value is computed from these sources. And I think now we're getting into territories like maybe we lose some of the audience, but the point is that this is kind of the making of the sausage. Like, if you want to, when we make things very simple for end users and for marketers and for those teams, this is kind of what it looks like. What you have to do on the back end, right?
How far deep in you want to go?
I feel like to go. So if you're still with us, you're probably open to going quite deep. Also, that's the deal. What software were you using before Sanity and Vercel?
I don't want to trash anyone, but we were not totally happy with it. Some of the problems we ran into, I think, are common with a lot of things, especially a few years ago, which was not easily being able to see draft content in its production form, which is just a huge pain, right? Because someone writes a blog post, they obviously want to see what it's going to look like before they hit publish. If that was, at one point it was just difficult. At another point it would like kind of work, but but the builds would take a long time. So every time there was like new draft, it would have to rebuild the whole site, and then builds were taking a long time, so that wasn't really working well. Then sometimes the like preview site that was special in running in development mode, so it would always pull the draft data, that would just like fall over sometimes. So then the person writing the blog post would actually have to ping a developer and say like, hey, the site's down, go spin that back up. So those were the kinds of problems that we were dealing with. I think I did write an article on the Sanity blog, maybe talking about migrating content from our old system to Sanity, so you can dig that up.
I mean, one of the interesting topics, I guess, is how this actually works. I think
it's funny.
The general idea that I guess that the source idea was, again, like, how can we get rid of the requiring the developer to, in their programming, like, mark up where stuff comes from, right? And not so much as in, like, there's two problems, right? A, you don't know. B, you have to like add stuff to your application to actually like kind of forward that knowledge. And so the core idea is basically that there are characters in UTF-8, which is the character set that modern websites use to encode what's on the screen, that have zero width.
Why do they exist? So there's not only one, there's two kinds of zero width.
No, so eventually we found 6.
Yeah.
We found 6 different ones, which means, okay, now I need to do some math in my head. So we encode, that's like 3-bit per 32-bit or maybe it's like a little bit more, but like or 4-bit per 32
It's
bits.
like 2.5 bits.
Yeah. So it's very verbose. So basically what we do is we take the information and we encode it into this like very small character set which you can't see, and put it into the string. And then that string kind of travels through the 15 abstractions that the engineers thought they needed to put like a headline on a tree. Like it just travels through it. And as long as you don't do anything to the front of the string, which, in practice is extraordinarily rare. Like people sometimes truncate at the back, so that's why we didn't put it at the back. But it's somewhat rare that you do something with the front. And also magically the JavaScript trim function, leaves it alone.
Doesn't work for these characters.
Yeah.
It isn't considered spaces for the trim function, guys, because they were made before Unicode, so the standard probably doesn't mention them.
Yeah. So it's not that
it's in a sense for like it's like having like hidden barcodes in these sort of strings, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of just travel with the strings, and that's how you don't have to instrument your front end. Right. Actually, you had a custom font, right?
Yeah. So this is the bug we ran into. I don't know if it's a bug or whatever, but it appeared like a bug. We were using a custom font on our website. We had a completely custom font that we got from our designers, and because the string had these actually like Unicode characters in the front, there's 0 width, and if you copied and pasted it somewhere, you wouldn't see anything. But that font family that we had was not, maybe didn't implement those UTF-8 characters, and so it was showing up as like question mark characters on the page, and that I was very confused. And then talked to Simon, and then he kind of explained. I was like, okay, that's how the magic's working here.
Your Unicode font, your custom font isn't compliant. You forgot to make the invisible characters invisible.
So we're still working around it. Yeah. Well, I mean, we have to get the people who made the custom font to yeah.
I mean, that's truly. I mean, obviously, so there are some edge cases like this, but that's a pretty crazy one.
Yeah. But I think it's worth it. So by having like the proper content, like so we had this discussion. We came up with this idea of using this kind of hidden characters, and then I thought like we want to have like a proper way for people who actually need to, or maybe frameworks in the future will support like a more kind of let's call it like a less interesting way of doing it. So that's supported by the content source map standard, and then we convert that to these kind of steganographic strings, so to make it hidden. And then the work of the developer here is more to kind of fix those few, like sometimes it breaks CSS a little bit because it's not it's expecting no spaces in the beginning of a string or something. It's small things, and I mean it only happens on the preview build, right? Like it doesn't actually affect production code.
I think the way you, not even only on the preview builds, what we recommend is that the existing functionality, at least in Next.js, that gives you like the draft version of your page, that you only in that mode actually invoke that API that passes through this information. So it's really only there in like once you have expressed the intent that you want to edit your or like you see like the live version of your page.
It's an interesting question because it goes back to the putting the head back on the headless, because there's a suggestion here of like, how about you could embed the Sanity Studio and the front end together in the same application, so to speak, in the same repo, to get back to that kind of. And actually, one of the things we shipped a little bit hidden, we haven't announced it yet. Well, because we are now supporting to deploy Sanity inside Next as just a path, so you can have like you can get back to your, if you're used to WordPress, you can have your /admin again. And it's actually also really helpful sometimes if it's a simple project, because you can have now your schema, your front end, and your CMS in the same project. It's a similar kind of line of thinking, but sometimes you don't need that separation of having things in different deployments. Have you tried that?
No, we have separate repos, so it's like when we make a schema change, it's like a PR to the CMS repo, and then that there's there's kind of like 2 PRs for schema changes. It's PR to the CMS repo and PR to the Next.js project. But I could see for a smaller project kind of co-locating that makes sense.
Even better, you don't put it in the same Next.js, but you put it in one monorepo. Yeah. Because that's the only way.
You get the best of both worlds. Yeah. If you find a little bit of complex deployment, I guess this is for super small things where you would like to play a simple WordPress thing, and you still want the kind of benefits of a composable architecture. And maybe you want to, now you can like easily detach them later if you need to. There's no architecture change. It's just like a URL change. So I think that's the thinking that is. Actually, it's a idea Guillermo came up with like 3 years ago, and it just took some time to get there.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, having the schema kind of directly mapped, that's pretty hot.
Guillermo being the CEO of Vercel, for those following along from home.
Yeah, the question was whether there's any intersection with Next Font. No, it should, like, basically this is really an edge case. So all the fonts you usually use would not have any problems with this. And yeah, if you use a custom font, you should be using Next Font, because it's incredibly difficult to get anything right without it. I can go very deep into why, but it's like, I also wrote like a 10-page blog post about what it does, if people really care. But I mean, for the audience, maybe like what Next Font does, because really you should use it on your site, is it takes your font, it parses the font, it determines the average width of the character of the custom font, and its line height, which is a little bit easier. Like it's in inherent line height. And then it makes a version of your fallback font, which is like Arial or Times New Roman, Verdana, whatever, like something that's pre-installed on every computer. And it says, make this Arial, but make the inherent character width exactly as my custom font. And so what that does is, as your website loads, the custom font appears immediately, which gets you a better LCP metric rating and happy users. And then once the custom font loads, it gets replaced at exactly the same spot, because the characters are the same width.
No jumpy layout.
No jumpy layouts. Yeah. So highly recommended.
Everyone I've met from Vercel is completely allergic to content shifts.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Right. But I also so I actually the CLS metric was my idea in the first place, because I hate it as much as anyone.
Okay, we're wrapping up. So thank you, Dylan Javeri. We were supposed to be here for 6 minutes, but we just kept you on. It was so amazing.
Excellent.
And thank you, Malte.
Thank you for having me.
To myself, Simon.